It'd be easy if I was a woman had that bra part sticking there. What you laughing at? Think I won't get a girl in here? Oh, you saw that the other night.
I've seen you in action.
This November 20th, 2010, and I live at 316 Christie Lane, Stoughton. My name is William Fiedler. I'm 80 years old, and I was a farmer and a forklift driver. I was born in Madison at the St. Mary's Hospital. 1930 I was born. I ain't grew up yet. You found that out the other night, didn't you? Well, the first 10 years of my life, we lived in Madison, and my dad bought a farm, and that was at Albany, Wisconsin. My earliest childhood memory was when I was about 9 years old. We lived in Madison yet at that time. I worked at the truck farm where Truex Field is now, weeding onions on my hands and knees all day for 7.5 cents an hour. I guess I was brought up more in the farming end of it because Dad always had me out helping in the chores end of it. And when we got home from school, I'd have to go out and help with the chores, and not too much in the morning. I didn't have to do too much in the morning except for feeding calves or something on that order. Oh, once in a while I'd be able to take a half hour off and ride horseback or something. I was most generally busy watching cows along the road because we didn't have, the roads weren't fenced so much back then, and the cows could get a lot of eating. See, we had a 10-acre pasture that was just a mile from where we lived, and we'd let the cows out in the morning and eat on the way back to pasture, and then lock them up for the day and then go down and get them at night at milking time again. Well, I don't know. I think my dad was born in Edgerton, and my mother was born up in the DeForest area.
What were their names? What were their names and ancestry?
Oh, my dad is Clarence Fiedler. My mother's name was Marcella Newberg. My dad was a German, and my mother was Norwegian.
Do you remember where your parents met?
No way, no idea. But I never could figure out how the hell my dad met my mother. When he lived in Edgerton, she lived in DeForest. He says with the horse, he says he could always fall asleep on the way home. The horse would always get him there. My dad wasn't a storyteller like I am. There used to be until I started forgetting them all. The only thing I can remember when we go down to my granddad's, him and my dad, after a while, would kind of wander outdoors and look the farm over, the buildings and the horses and the cows and this. And they didn't really know that I could really understand some of the stuff they was talking to, even if they weren't talking to me. I could hear that better, just like you. Duane, I better point one of you out. And I would be standing in the horse barn or something talking, or they would not be in there now and then. And my granddad would always give me a quarter. See, he'd go out in the horse barn and give me a quarter. I don't know if he's trying to get me out of there, so I didn't understand too much what they were saying or what it was. But anyways, when my step-grandmother found out about it, she'd always send my dad's half-brother, she'd always send him out to the horse barn so that she could kind of keep track on him, how many quarters he was giving out. Otherwise, and when I stayed with my aunt and uncle, In the summertime when the folks went on a vacation or something, go down to my aunt and uncle's, and they raised tobacco and they raised tomatoes for cash crops. And my cousin and I, we was going to clean out the horse barn one day. She's lives in Rockford, yeah. And I says to her, we're getting the manure pretty well cleaned up, but what we needed was a shovel to clean it up better, see. And I says, you better let me clean up with a shovel and put the fork away so you don't get hurt with it. And she didn't listen to me. She's going to use the fork anyway. And she ran a tine right between my big toe and my next toe. And of course, her dad then had loaded up the tomatoes and taken them to Janesville for processing. And didn't need no big factories like they got nowadays, you know, everything automatic. But that was quite an ordeal, and my folks come to pick us up that day. I was sitting on the step there was a step between the kitchen and the dining room, and I was sitting on the step holding my niece that wasn't too old then. She couldn't walk or anything yet, and I was just holding her. I guess that was about the extent of that one. But I'd always be waiting out by the road about dinner time, so I could, when my uncle would come back out of the field with the horses in the cultivator, I'd always ask him if I could drive the horses home. So he'd walk behind the cultivator, and I'd drive the horses home. My dad died when he was 69, and my mother was 89.
Do you remember your grandparents?
Not too much of them. They had a little farm just outside, off in 51 between Janesville and Albion, actually. If you go out of between Edgerton and Janesville. I never got to know my grandparents that well, although I didn't get along. My dad's mother died when he was quite young, and then when I got to go, after they had us, so my sister would always have to stay with my dad's sister, and I'd have to stay with Grandma and Grandpa, or be step-grandmother. And she used to tease the hell out of me. That's a part of a grandparent's deal, ain't it? And so I couldn't take it anymore, and I told her to shut up. And she never talked to me any more than she actually had to. I always had to go to the woods with Grandpa, and they split railroad ties and things like that, because she wouldn't acknowledge that. I mean, I guess you got to put up with some of that foolishness or orneriness or something when you get to be grandparents.
What's the best memory you have of your dad?
I don't know. We got along quite a little better, I think, when I wasn't at home all the time, because he always thought I could have been doing more work than I was. And he said something to me once, I don't know just what it was, but anyways, he says, if you don't work around here, pack a suitcase and head down the road. And I guess Ma might have been eating breakfast or something that day, and Ma says, he goes, I go. So that's how come I guess I'm still around here. And then we'd bale hay in the summertime, and then we got our baler our own. But when I was 15 years old, I worked in a Swiss cheese factory. Have you ever been in one? A Swiss cheese factory? Anyways, the wheels of cheese are about like this, you know, and some of them weigh close to 200 pounds. And you'd have to take them, wash them twice a week, and put them on these racks of pipes. So you'd get them up on the far side of you, lift them on the first row of pipes, and then slide them, because they had cleats across the bottom of the cheese lids, they call them. And we would slide them across. But this one day I had to, I worked there for $100 a month, board and room in the summertime when I was senior in high school or in high school. And now I've lost my train of thought for a minute here. One day the cheesemaker was gone, I guess, to Monroe to see the cheese buyer, and the regular guy that was full time with him too, he couldn't. He was sick, and his brother took his place. And well, the day I was done, and his brother was done that same day, why the regular one came back, and but before that happened, why they had a half-gallon of wine in the cream cooling tank in the factory part, and I says to that guy, and he was on an elevated table so he could get the higher shelves, and I says to him, I said, geez, the boss is gone. I says, that'd be a good time to see what the hell we can do with that half-gallon of wine. Well, he was on that elevated table, so he never come down all afternoon. But night, that half-gallon of wine was gone. And of course we had to go and visit one of the big producers for the factory there, and bid him farewell, you know. And I had pretty enough. And then we had to go to town and visit the brother to that big producer, because he just was on furlough from the service that weekend. And we had to go back to factory. Then my folks were there to pick me up. And on the way home, well, I was plowed hell. I had to follow the kettles around so I wouldn't fall down. And I was just hoping that they would have been upstairs playing cards or something, but they weren't. So when I got in the car to go home, we got going down the road, and Dad says, I hear you kind of took up smoking pipe. I says, no, I never smoked pipe. He says, ain't the way I heard it. And on the way home, that pipe found its way out of the suitcase, and it's hatching little ones, I guess, yet. I don't know.
What was your best memory of your mother?
I suppose that time she saved my life. I don't know. No, she didn't. She, even after Dad died, she moved to Stoughton to be closer to me than she was my sister, because her and my brother-in-law didn't hitch it all that good, and she worked pretty damn hard. And then she'd come down here. She'd come out in the field and pick up stones and stuff like that with us. She'd come here pretty regular. In fact, your grandma here, she never really treated her right, I didn't think, but that was neither here nor there. I can't talk about the dead too much. And then when the barn burnt down, why, she come up and helped quite a little at that time too. Lent me a little more money so I could replenish some stuff that burned up. A lot of times I would just wish I would have tried something different than farming when I was so young. I started farming on it. Well, when I was out of high school, I already had bought in a share in Dad's farm, so. Oh, I know one thing. I forgot that we did go Halloweening one night, and we Well, there was 5 of us, I guess 5 or 6 of us, and we went to the farmer who had his corn already cut. You know how they made those shocks out in the field where they tie a few bundles together? Well, we went in this field and we tipped over quite a bunch of them. But there was somebody had been in that field before we were, because we was stumbling over shocks that were down. And this farmer wasn't very well liked anyways. And by gosh, what was that, Monday morning or Sunday after that, the farmer come up and says to my dad, he says, I want those shocks set up before Monday morning. So we had to go there and set those shocks up. But we didn't set them all up because we figured the other guys should have come set theirs up, whoever they were. And so we set those shocks up on Sunday, and Monday morning the guys shredded. Went and hauled them all in out of the field and run them through the sprayer. And that was kind of, and my dad, he talked to my dad, he didn't talk to me. And Dad says, just remember you got a son growing up too.
I guess what was the most trouble you got into as a kid?
I never got any trouble
Of course not.
outside of them corn shocks.
I think you're hiding something.
No, I ain't hiding nothing.
Not gonna tell.
Well, I ain't got nothing to tell you. I never got in trouble. What you got in mind?
I'm not gonna tell you mine either.
You ain't. Well, I think I know part of them.
I'm sure you do.
I can remember coming down here, folks' place, and it was the guy that I bought my farm from and helped him put ceiling and wallboard on in the living room, and you two guys just chased one around with a stick, and I was losing my temper. I can remember that.
Sounds about right.
How could anybody lose their temper with us?
It wasn't very hard.
What are some of your favorite traditions that your parents have passed down to you guys?
I don't know, outside of the farming end of it, or we used to go to a lot of dances and stuff to with well, them too, with wedding dances and things like that. We'd come up in the country, and some friends of ours, we'd all go to dances.
What about the food end of it? 'Cause I know one terrible one.
Yeah, lutefisk.
No, that was actually my dad ate more. Being in the German accent, he ate more lutefisk than my mother did, and I was raised in it with it. But that's good stuff, Maynard. I can remember too when the folks lived on the first farm they had. They used to butcher when it was cold, because then they'd hang the pig up on the windmill and let it cool and whatever they have to do with it. And then whenever he'd take a quarter of it in or something and lay it on the dining room table, and they'd hang a curtain between the kitchen door and dining room door and lay that pig out in there, keep that room a little extra cool so that the meat would be easier to handle. And then I'd get home from school, I'd have to grind lard. She'd cook that, and Ma would fry the lard down, and then pour it into this lard press, and you'd crank it, and it'd push the plunger light down and squeeze the juice out of the lard. Well, then you'd save that, and whenever you'd get a layer in that crock, it'd be a 30-gallon crock, you'd get a layer of pork chops or something in that. Well, then you'd pour a thin layer over the top of that and let it harden up, like. And that's what how we kept the lard, the meat in the wintertime, or you fry it down. The pork steak, bacon. So that was quite an experience, just get on the end of that crank for a while. And then the lard, we'd take and put in a smaller crock and use that for frying eggs in the morning and things like this. Of course, my childhood ended then when I graduated from high school. Fool enough to get married, I guess.
So you didn't do anything for it.
No, we didn't really. The one thing I can remember is when I was in the high school, we didn't have a school bus yet at that time, and the neighbor kid drove every day, and he lived past me, so he would always give me a ride home and to school. One morning, the neighbor down the other side of us was taking his sister to school, and they hauled their milk into the condensery. And that farmer that lived right below us, he is trying to beat us because he could see us coming down the hill, and he tried to get ahead of us. And the guy I was riding with decided he wasn't going to let him by. And so he's watching in his mirror, and when the guy wanted to pass on one side, he'd pull over there and back and forth. And we got just to the top of the hill on the outside of Albany, and the other guy was going to pass us on the right side. And this guy decided he wasn't going to let him over there, so he pulled over, hit a kid on the bicycle. He went flying in the air about 10, 15 feet, I guess.
Was he okay?
I guess I think he broke either one or two legs out of it, is about. That was memorable.
Favorite childhood memory. On that note, where did you go to school?
Went to school in Albany. Well, went to first as a country school, one-room school with probably 8 or 10 kids in it. And my sister and I both went there, and we both was the same grade. She stayed back 1 year. And then, we went from there. We went to Albany High School because we graduated from 8th grade from that country school, where we had the pass instead of the bath. And you never heard of that before? Had the outdoor privies. So they had the back corner of the schoolhouse lot. On one corner, the women was on one side, men was on the other. Somehow or other, they got some holes drilled in the back of the women's can. I don't know how come.
You did that?
No, not me. That was done before I got there. Yeah, and then we went to the Albany High School. Never learned anything there.
It might be a redundant question then. Do you think you were a good student?
No. No, I had girls in my mind.
Did you enjoy school at all, aside from the girls?
No, I actually got in trouble one time in high school. I forgot about that one. We got off the bus one morning, and that was in our sophomore year. And for high school there, that was the second year in high school. I went down in the locker room, took off my coat for, it was winter time. And a couple of guys sitting down in the locker, they had these heating grates for heating the locker room and stuff. And one of them says, "Here, try this," and he handed me a little Caro syrup bottle full, And I says, I'll wait until I hang my coat up. And he says, it won't take you long. So I up with the bottle and take a sip out of it. And then the bell rang for school to start. And so we had to actually go in the homeroom. And the principal, he always had a felon on his finger. And he always walked around in front of the room with his finger like where you're sitting. And he had there's three of us that was actually involved, the two that was in the locker room and me. And when I got there, and the principal had us all picked out, and we sat in a little, about a 6x6 room, I guess, it was 8x6. Had to sit in that room all day for punishment for having a little sip of wine. That's all I took was just a little sip, and he had us all three of us sitting in that little room all day. But we could, it was some of us guys would help put the sandwiches together for the noon luncheon, you know, and we were able to go down and help with that, or otherwise it was and you know, I can't remember that my folks ever heard about it. I don't think they. Of course, that's part of the principle wherever you go, I guess. I keep what you hear here and see here, leave it here. Way back then.
Should be. Do you have any teachers in your past that you particularly liked?
No. The only one was in the country school. She was just her first year out of Greene County Normal. And so she was pretty young. She's kind of nice to look at. We had to behave when we went to school. And in the country school, at least, we had didn't have a well for water. So that was the job of us older ones and bigger ones to go up to the nearest farm and get some fresh water to put in one of those crock coolers like. And it was so cold, and my feet have always gotten cold, my feet and hands. And, oh, geez, about frozen before we got back with that water. And it was only probably from here twice to the house across the road here. So that was quite a remembrance there.
Can you tell me how and where you met Grandma?
I met Charlene in high school. And she sat right in front of me in homeroom. And back then the girls used to wear these dresses with the belt tied behind, you know. And our seats, the front of my seat was against the back of hers, you know, lined up. And of course, as nice a guy as I am, what you laughing at? Anyway, I reached down there, got a hold of the end of that bowl back there, and untied it. And then I tied it to my seat. So, and then the next class she had to go to, she was tied to her seat. And she still married me. I don't know what it must have been a good Joe business, huh? And then ended up our junior year, we was prom king, and then after graduated, got married.
What'd you guys like to do for fun?
Dance. Old time dance up the Park Ponderosa in McFarland.
How did you propose to her?
That's too far back. I think I just walked up to her and handed her the ring, I don't know. For graduation, I believe. I still got it. All the rest of the rings are gone, but I still got hers. Says I ought to take that to one of these places that's buying gold, hadn't I? Huh? Suppose I can get my money back?
How did you know that Grandma was Duane?
I don't know. I just probably couldn't get anybody else to go with me. I don't know. Well, I tell you, the first thing is that I was from a poor family. I mean, Mom and Pa never had any money, and her dad had less, and he ended up. I keep telling everybody, because this is the way I heard it, that he had he worked for a car repair shop part-time. When he got laid off at the mill and wasn't working. And I was told that he was more or less a grease monkey, and change oil and stuff like this. And I told that he had drank some wood alcohol. And that was the end of it. So that then, he probably wouldn't got together with her so much if her dad would have been alive, because he didn't like me. But he never had anything. He never even owned a car.
Where were you when you first found out you were going to be a dad?
Jesus, maybe in bed, I don't know. Wasn't in the backseat of a car or anything.
How did it make you feel?
What?
When you found out you were going to be a dad?
I don't know. I've been around cattle and all this stuff most of my life. It was just another happening. My cousin come out from Rockford one time when he was on the farm, and had his kids with him, and I had a cow that was out to pasture there, and she's having a little one. And my cousin's dad, he took her right out there and got up as close as he could that he wouldn't be bothering the cow, and was explaining everything to this daughter of his that about calving and how it all took place. Farm girls, they'd go and hide up in the barn someplace and look out the window, I guess. I don't know. No, it was quite a... And Connie was born in the hospital in Monroe, and I'd waited up there all afternoon. Nothing was happening, so I said, shit, I might as well go home and milk the cows and come back afterwards. She says, I no more than got out down the hall and the baby was born. So I never was in the hospital when any of them were born. Never hit any of them. And the same doctor delivered all 5 of them. That's something kind of, I mean, when they come night and any time of the day, or night.
When did you buy the farm? What made you decide to go into farming?
Well, I wasn't getting along that good with my landlord where we was before. And I'd moved off Dad's farm because it wasn't big enough. I had 2 kids then, and nobody told me that was going to be the end. So I thought I needed more production here. So I rented that farm, and then when I was going to stay there, to go and renew a contract with him, and Charlene says, well, if you are going to stay here, you're going to be here by yourself, because I ain't going with you. And so we had to keep looking for a farm, because we'd seen some nice ones and we'd seen some pretty junky ones, And I said she must have took to the fact that we wasn't going to be able to buy the better one, and we I didn't want to make sure I was still hooked up.
You're all good.
I thought once then I should go into Chevrolet or something like that, and had good retirement benefits. But we saw this one, and I said, well, if we don't get that one, we're done looking. I'm going to that one. So we found this one, and we both liked it, so we moved up there. Was there for 20 years. Yeah.
Did you take on any other jobs while farming?
Oh, no, not. Well, yes, I hauled bulk milk in the wintertime when the crops and everything else was taken care of, but hauled to Janesville and gave Connie a ride home every Friday night. Her and another girl were usually standing on the corner by where the nurses' home was, the nurses' school.
How did you get into the bus driving business?
Oh, I forgot about that too. Well, at that time I wasn't milking cows anymore. I'd gone back, Jim had taken over then, and I'd gone back, and the bus driver was looking for somebody to drive for him. He says, "Here's a good job for you," so that's how come I got into that. I was in that for probably 8 or 9 years altogether.
Any good lessons that farming taught you?
Not a one.
Not a one.
No. I was broke when I started and broke when I ended up.
That's why you don't become a farmer?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I guess you learn a little bit about money management is one thing. But years ago when you'd overdraft your checking account or something, you could go down to the bank. You could borrow $500 or something like that for 6 months or whatever. And they'd just mark it off on a little card. It lines in like a recipe card or something. And they never bother you. And then when you get to you guys' age, you can't hardly borrow it that way anymore. You got to get credit card business, and their interest rates are so. And this would be probably 4 or 5% interest yet, you know. And it was just interest as long as you had the money when you made the $500 payment on it. So that helped out quite a bit. The fella I bought the farm from, he lived in that house he built on the corner of the farm then. And they left on a vacation the day we moved in the house. And he says, "No, when I come back," he says, "I ain't got any house to live in." I says, "Well, we ain't gonna use all this space." I says, "If you can use any of it, I go ahead." So they slept at our place, then ate at our place on the farm yet. They'd go to Madison some days and buy a whole bushel of bananas that was just a little bit too ripe for this place to deliver them to stores. It was all just off in Park Street. No, East Ocean Avenue, yeah. Or West, no, East Ocean. Anyway, then they was there just about a year. They moved back off near the 18th of December. Never been a year. And so we wanted to buy some feeder pigs because I'd bought all the corn. When he had his auction, I bought all the corn there. He says, "Now remember, when you buy something here," he says, I don't have to pay. He didn't have to pay the commission to the auctioneers because he made it out with them that anything I bought was considered a bid-in, see. And God, I bought all the oats and the hay and the silage and I don't know if it was something out of the pigs. And went in the house to settle up, and the cashier for the sale, he says, got the auctioneers in, and he says something about, "Well, what about this now, everything that I bought?" And he says, and the farmer that I bought from got a little bit huffy, and his eyes got big, and he says, "This is all made out beforehand." He says, "That I don't have to pay for any commission on that." And that's the way that went. Then after we moved in, well, he walked out the door then with their suitcases, and he says, "I got this money laying in the bank," he says, "from the auction," and I says, "I'm going to be gone for a month." He says, handed me a blank check with a signature on it, and says, "If he can use any of this while I'm gone." That's it. Pay me back. He says, there's no interest on it. And so then the first market day was in Jefferson, I think it was. Yeah, we went down to buy some more pigs because he says, you ain't got enough pigs to handle all the corn you got here. So we went in, and the trucks would start coming in with the 25, 30 pigs or something on that order, feeder pigs. And he'd get up on the running board, how much? They'd tell him, too much. He says, too much, and we'd walk around, and we didn't buy anything in Jefferson. But the next week it was in Watertown too. And we ended up, we bought 37. And there's one load this guy brought in. And he paid for all of them. Says, you don't have to worry about paying for these until you sell them. So that was a big lift for me, and when I got moved up here, it was we'd go to the banks or any place else and want to borrow what I had to borrow for the down payment on the farm, you know. There's a lot of places wouldn't let that go because it was a kind of a small farm for letting that much money go.
Like, yeah, like things you would normally do throughout the week that you particularly liked. Like if there was a radio program at some point that you guys always shared.
We was lucky we had a radio when I was growing up.
That's the only thing I could think of.
I think we was all had company on the day Pearl Harbor was born, and that everybody kind of set when they kind of come through that something big was happening. And that was just about it, I guess.
How does something like 9/11 compared to something like, I mean, you're of that generation where you were around when Pearl Harbor happened. How do those two tie into each other, and how do you see them?
Well, Pearl Harbor was kind of not planned so good. I mean, as far as timing, but when World War II, that would be the Japanese one. But World War I, my dad, nor my grandpa, nor me ever had to go into service. And but Pearl Harbor, I never. Oh, that would be about one of the first things. Did you have Gabriel Heater? You probably don't remember him. He used to be the favorite newscaster on every day happening at Pearl Harbor back then. But when I was farming here before I moved out, one of my neighbors was on the ship when they bombed it, and he just died about 2-3 months ago. But it wasn't from any injuries or anything. He was able to dodge the main deal of the war, I guess. But boy, he says them runways over in Hawaii, there's about like bicycle trails back here now, you know.
You think you were affected the same way when 9/11 happened?
Just about, I suppose. Took it up as news for a while, and then you kind of get tired of those guys and don't pay much attention after that. Every time you turn TV on, why, it was something about that, and it got tiring after a while.
Overall, what are the most important things that you've learned in life that you've always carried with you?
I don't know, just never hold a grudge, I guess, but I held a few of them myself, but I always knew if I got in a little argument, just smile and walk away.
What's the largest obstacle that you've overcome in life?
I don't know, outside of, I tipped the first car I bought, I tipped that over on my birthday. And I wasn't only about a half a mile home. In such a hurry to get down there to see your grandmother. Yeah, no, your great grandmother. Well, that's what I was going down to see Charlene, actually. And there was a gravel road, and a half mile from home, and it was right after the January thaw. And I got to going down the hill, and I didn't think I was going that fast. And by gosh, the front wheels got caught in them, 2 ruts, and the back wheels and 2 others. I went sideways down the whole damn hill, and when I got to the bottom, the front wheels were in the ditch, and the car was laying on its side. my dad and my brother-in-law, then they got the harnesses on the team of horses, come up and put a rope around the car and tipped it back up and pulled it home. And next day we went and bought some more new oil and filled it up with gas, and away we went. And we went clear to Niagara Falls with that 35 Plymouth, and never knew it until we got on the outskirts of Chicago on the way home. Never checked the tires or nothing. Got on the outskirts of Chicago, and a guy pulled up to the stoplight there. He says, "You got a front tire here. Look kind of small, soft." So I stopped, ejected, sure as hell the tire was going flat. All the rest of them were flat. They're smooth too. No money to buy another one. But we filled it up with air and we made it home. Then I had to buy some new tires. And we broke. Just like you are now. Eh? Yeah, and I think that's about do that part of it, yeah. Oh, and that would have been one of the highlights, I suppose, that I had when I tipped my car over. Another one was when I was helping my brother-in-law fill silo, and he had the tractor hooked to the wagon, and he had thrown some on loose ones. When he cut the corner on the edge of the field, that first row or two, you used to have to run it down while we cut it off by hand, and used it daily as we needed it. And gosh, he went to shut the gate into that field up there, and I thought he was gone a long time, and I was going to get off and help him. And he come around, and he says, "Look at that." And here there was a tractor that he was borrowing from the neighbor, and it had the right brake didn't hold. And that's the only one. See, they had one for each side. And I set the right brake, and I didn't set it hard enough. And that trailer with that load of corn stalks on rolled down the hill. And there's big, pretty good sized ravines there, you know. And I took off running after it. Do you know where I was? I was on the tongue of the wagon when the tractor and the load tipped off. The tractor, all 4 wheels right there. And I was on the tongue of the wagon. That would have been a highlight, wouldn't it? Huh? And then when he got it all taken care of, he thought I ought to pay for getting it fixed up yet. And I was over there helping him for nothing. Huh?
That's a good question. What advice would you give the young couples?
Well, I don't know. Partly would have fun, but not go overboard. I mean, kind of find your limits. What you laughing at? He knows I'm hitting at him again. Don't you? Aiming at you anyway. That's about all I could say. I mean, but the one thing, a guy too, is if you're gonna go and get married, though, you've got to get together and talk about things first. I think, you know, because that's where a lot of it's all lovey-dovey until you live together for 6 months, and then you find out that there's different things that you want and the different things that she wants, and where do you go? You know, it's throw it out the window, I guess. And of course, the thing nowadays, to get anything, it seems like both sides have to work full-time jobs in order to get what they aimed at when they got married. You know, you get a house right away or something like that. You know, new car, and after a while, they find out that they can't make the payments on the furniture they put in the house. Right? It goes right down the line. All these young kids, they see these nice big houses, they like them. They got to eat off of a card table because they can't put a table in the kitchen to eat off them. And pretty soon the bank got them again, you know. Unless you got money like Oprah.
What's your best memory of Grandma? We just have a few more questions to go through.
Oh. Well, I was going to say how hard she works and what she had to put up with, you know, to get the housework and stuff. We never had washers or dryers. We had to carry the water in and heat it on a boiler on the wood stove overnight. And then rinse water we had to pump by hand, or if the wind didn't blow, and put that in the rinse tanks for rinsing the clothes. And then, like I say, she 3 meals a day cook for us, and if she made a cake, it lasts about 2 days at the most. And so she done a lot of cooking, made homemade bread and washing. Wintertime, she hung clothes out every day all winter. Have to take them in, they'd freeze solid just like a board, carrying them in the house, and then your mother does the same thing, I suppose, somewhat. But she just hang them over spread out the dining room chairs and hang them over the backs of the chairs so that they'd thaw out. So you'd fold them up, and of course back then they didn't have fitted sheets or anything, so but I just can't. And she'd even iron my uncle. He lived with us for a while in Madison first, and she'd even iron the handkerchiefs, you know, and you don't see women doing washcloths and bath towels. You don't see that anymore. What the heck? And she'd go out and feed the chickens, hunt the eggs, and if we happened to be home for weekends or something. One thing I always remember about Christy, she happened to be home on egg hunting time. She was always afraid of these chickens that would be sitting there. They'd pick at you when you'd go to reach under and get the eggs out of them, off them, under them. And she'd always wear a long sleeve shirt, like a hooded sweatshirt or something. And she'd get her hand way up in there, and then she'd sneak it in under and get the eggs out from under. She just didn't like to get picked, I guess. There's a couple that used to live down around the lake here. They moved to Washington, and he worked in a lumber factory out there where they'd saw boards and stuff and stack them up and make plywood. And Charlene and her always kept notes back and forth. And so one year we went out to Christie and Stan. No, we went up there first. We went to Vancouver. Is Vancouver, Washington? And that's where they took us that place, and by plane. I mean, that's the way Stan kind of planned it. And then we got, I rented a car and drove from there to pretty near the country line, I guess. And they went to the World's Fair. And then they drove home. He'd rented a car in California, and they drove up. They wanted to go a couple days ahead so they could see the World's Fair. And so when they come out of the World's Fair, we met them, and we drove all the way down along the coast. And I don't know, went through the tree with a hole in it for driving through and all that. It was really interesting. Showed us a lot of trips, but Oh, I don't know. Just I suppose having be there at the hospital when she took her last breath. You mean my mother or your grandma? Oh, it didn't. That didn't faze me as much as when my mother went. It was because we'd been with her illness for so damn long that it was just. And when they wasn't getting to the root of the problem, why there was no life then, you know. But
Is there anything you would like to share with the family, like as a whole?
I just spit it all out. I says there's going to come a day when you might be glad you got a family to go back to, you know. Because I says the friends, they can come and go, but your relatives will always be there, you know. Just remember that. Giving you some lessons here. Are you swallowing them all? Yeah.
I guess the last thing I got that I can think of that I'm interested in, especially.
Yeah.
If you could ask God one question, what would it be?
I have no idea. I'd probably stump him on that. No, I don't know. There's so many of them, I guess. Just so he says leaves the gate unlocked up there for me. But I really by going up here to church, well, like Charlene always had to go. I've missed 4 Sundays in a row now, I guess. But how many people actually do know you? When I was laid up and walking in with crutches and this and that, or cane, why, a lot of the people, not many men, come up and shook my hand or anything like that, but the women would all give me a hug. Can you imagine that? Huh?
Seems to be that way anywhere you go, though.
Yeah. No special. I don't want to get too serious with anybody.
It's a ladies' man.
Mm.
If there was one message you could relate to your wife, what would it be?
To what?
To your wife.
I don't know. I know I did really appreciate how hard she worked when we was farming. Never forget the time that she, when the first year we bought the farm out there, we was getting ready to get baby chicks, you know, and a guy come along he'd been discharged from the army, but had been a prisoner in Germany, and he was selling this farm paper. It was the Wisconsin Agriculturist or something like that, or Prairie Farmer, and I talked to him a while, and then she come out and she got on the tractor and drove and fitted the field the way we were doing it. And I stood there visiting with that guy. I just couldn't brush him off. I was too much of a sucker to get. But anyways, after a while she come down and she says, "If that's all you got to do, God damn it, get on the tractor and go. I'll go to the house." That was that. And what happened, this soldier, he says, you go up to take a pee, and he says, everybody's standing there, what the hell's so different about her? Hell, them Germans cut out both of his nuts. And no anesthetic or anything, you know. And they couldn't figure out what the hell that guy was missing. But she didn't have any time for that. And, oh, I don't know. You know, after you run a tractor so long, you get so used to sitting on the damn thing that sometimes a good break for talking, visiting with neighbors. Well, my neighbor's fence was farming right across from me. He had planted corn in there. One happened to meet close by, just have to crawl over the fence. So we'd stop and have a few words. About the time she'd see me sitting there visiting with the neighbor. Wish that's all I had to do. So that ain't the funnest memory. But she was always there. When I was hauling bulk milk, I would clean barns and stuff after I got home. No, she would do that. No. Well, anyways, it was one of the coldest damn nights we had, and I had to haul the manure out yet, clean the barns and haul the manure. She had the cows was bedded down and fed, and I had to haul the manure out. And Jesus Christ, the apron was froze up, and nothing was working right. And it was after midnight that night before I got my load of manure unloaded. And then the flats were still froze down. I took them up to I took the manure spreader up to the neighbors where he had one of these dry-through barns, and left it in there so animal heat to thaw them out enough that I could get things going again, you know. See how I say one thing reminds you of another, and you get all turned around here. Oh.